How you like my mask? Pretty cool, huh? Hey, if we're going to have to wear masks, you might as well have some fun with it, right? And I got a house full of cats, the Magnificent Seven. So I love being a leopard. Hey, it's Krause here talking about histology. Histology. Chapter 6 in Super Simple. Histology. And I'm going to take off my hat, and it messes my hair up a little bit, but hey, what's power on? Histology, study of tissues. 4 primary tissues, remember from the H2O sheet? ECMN. ECMN. Say it. ECMN. ECMN. Remember, vocalize, vocalize, vocalize. Read out loud. Explain things to people. Talk about stuff. Vocalization is a wonderfully effective way to learn. We use it in like 3rd grade, 2nd grade, 4th grade all the time. When you get to college or even high school, and we stop doing those types of things. In my classes, I have students chanting ECMN or CPLN, the 4 primary biochemicals that we'll get to when we get to the chemistry chapter. So ECMN, epithelium, it lines and covers. So you can minimize or eliminate memorization. If it's a tissue that's lining the aorta, it's a type of epithelium. If it's covering the lungs, it's a type of epithelium. If it lines the vagina, it's a type of epithelium. If it covers the skin, the epidermis, it's a type of epithelium. In this case, keratinized, stratified squamous epithelium. So it lines and covers. Connective tissue connects. Hello, connection. Connective tissue connects and supports. Muscle creates movement. 3 types of muscle. Cardiac, only found one place, the heart. Visceral, found in the guts. It's smooth or involuntary. And skeletal, or striated, which is voluntary. We have control over it. And nervous, which is about electrical communication. It's our primary communication system. Endocrine system is a secondary communication system, but that's down the road for us. Right now, ECMN. Remember muscle, movement. Anytime anything is moving in the human body, there's probably muscle involved. There are some exceptions, as there almost always are, to general concepts, but that, again, can help you minimize memorization. Epithelium, lines and covers, and it's named in 2 ways, rule of 2, named in 2 ways. By the number of layers, if it's only 1 layer thick, it's simple. If it's 2 or more layers thick, it's stratified, like a brick wall with multiple layers of brick. And then the shape of the cells at the apical or the free surface. All epithelial tissue has a basement membrane and has a free or apical surface, like on your skin, free surface, open to the outside. The nose is lined by epithelial tissue, and it has a free or apical surface that's open to the nasal cavity. And I think it's really important. I think it's most important for you to know how epithelial tissue is named. You do need to know, and they're listed in Super Simple, 9 different types of epithelial tissue. Simple squamous, simple cuboidal, transitional, which is an unusual type, or pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium with goblet cells lining the trachea, bronchial tubes of the lungs. It's important for you to be able to understand where you might find those. Remember, things are shaped the way they're shaped because of what they do. So simple squamous, simple, 1 layer thick, squamous, flat, Shape of the apical cell. Oh, I didn't tell you that. Shape of the apical cell. Flat like a fried egg, that's squamous. Shaped like a cube, that's cuboidal. Concept of common sense. These sciences make common sense. They're logical. Or cells that are shaped like a column. Those are columnar. So squamous, cuboidal, columnar. So simple squamous epithelium, really thin. It's shaped the way it's shaped because of what it does. It facilitates, like in the alveolar sacs in the lungs, the exchange of gases, oxygen into the pulmonary vasculature, carbon dioxide out of the pulmonary capillary bed into the alveolar sacs where we can breathe it out, where it can be expired. So epithelial tissue, connective tissue, and there are more varieties of connective tissue than there are any of the other types of primary tissue. There are, and I've got it in here somewhere. Here it is. I want to make sure I get it right. There are three general types of connective tissue. There's connective tissue proper. So loose connective tissue, dense connective tissue, that's connective tissue proper, like loose areolar connective or dense irregular or dense regular connective. Those are connective tissue proper. Then there's supporting connective tissue, cartilage, bone. That makes sense. Again, concept of common sense, it's logical. Supportive connective tissue, bone and cartilage, and fluid connective tissue, blood and lymph. You need to know those three general types of connective tissue. And then there are, I think there are 13 or 15 different types of connective tissue listed in super simple that you need to know. Areolar, loose areolar connective tissue, adipose, fat, one of the unusual types of connective tissue. Remember, all connective tissue has a matrix with cells suspended in that matrix. So blood, the matrix is the plasma with the blood cells, red, white, and platelets suspended in that matrix. Reticular tissue that you find in lymphatic organs like the spleen and lymph nodes, dense regular and dense irregular connective tissue, elastic connective tissue, which you might guess stretches and then recoils like a rubber band. That's why it's called elastic. This stuff makes common sense, doesn't it? Supporting connective tissue, cartilage, hyaline cartilage, most common cartilage in the body. You find it on the ends of the bones in all of our synovial joints, the joints that move, like the finger joints, elbow, shoulder, knee, hip, ankle. Fibrocartilage, really tough cartilage that you find in places like the symphysis pubis and the inner vertebral discs, those discs between vertebral bodies, as well as the menisci of the knee, are fibrocartilage. And elastic cartilage. Again, it has some elastic recoil kinds of properties. I only find it in two places, the epiglottis that closes off the trachea when we're swallowing food, so the food and drink goes down the esophagus, not down the trachea, and in the pinna, the external aspect of the external ear. That's the only place you find elastic cartilage. Then there's bone, both compact and spongy, blood and lymph. So know those different types of connective tissue. Muscle tissue, there are just the three. Cardiac muscle, only found in the heart. Visceral muscle, lining the tubular organs primarily. And striated or skeletal muscle, which is voluntary. Visceral muscle and cardiac are involuntary. Although there is some nervous input into those, it's not voluntary nervous input. It's automatic or autonomic, part of the autonomic nervous system. And understanding that striated is voluntary and visceral muscle is involuntary can help you minimize some memorization. So the diaphragm, the major muscle of breathing that separates the thoracic cavity from the abdominal pelvic cavity. What do you think? What kind of muscle is that made of? Hyperventilate. Don't want to do that too much. Blow off CO2 and you'll get dizzy, maybe pass out. But I can, you can, we can control our breathing. So it must be voluntary muscle. Now it has two nerve centers in the brain that innervate it. So we do continue to breathe when we lose consciousness, when we go to sleep, or when we pass out, get a concussion on the football field or whatever. And then an organ like the uterus, is it striated or visceral muscle? It's not cardiac because it's not heart. Well, there's no voluntary control of the uterus. So it is visceral, smooth or involuntary muscle. So understand the concept, minimize the memorization. And then there's nervous tissue, which is all about communication. Neurons with 6 supporting glial cells. And you need to know those 6 neuroglial cells. 4 in the CNS, 2 in the PNS, 4 in the central nervous system, the CNS, and those would be astrocytes, shaped like stars. An astronomer studies the stars, astrocytes. This stuff makes sense. It's logical. Microglia, part of the immune system, defends the brain. Oligodendrocytes, one of my favorite words to say, oligodendrocyte. Say it. Oligodendrocyte. Oligodendrocyte. That produce myelin sheaths in the CNS. And ependymal cells that line the cerebral ventricles that contain cerebral spinal fluid inside the brain. They produce that cerebral spinal fluid and also have some cilia that wave and help move or circulate that cerebral spinal fluid. Then the 2 neuroglial cells in the PNS or peripheral nervous system are satellite cells, which are around the outside of the soma or cell body of sensory neurons, like in the dorsal root ganglion. They help protect it and support it. And then there are Schwann cells, now being called neurolemmacytes. Schwann cells, I like to call them. It's more fun to say, and that's the way I learned it decades ago. But you can use either one, Schwann cells, neurolemmacytes, which produce myelin sheath in the PNS. So there's histology, really important. You're not going to be a histologist in all likelihood, but you need to understand tissues, because tissues made up of the 4 primary tissues, organs made up of the 4 primary tissues are what make up the body. Cells, tissues, organs, organ systems, organism, and we're back to column 1 in the H2O sheet, organizational hierarchy. All right, let's see. Yep. Oh, I'm having trouble. I don't know where my leopard went. Anyway, he's in there somewhere. All right, I'm wasting your time. I'll see you next time when we'll talk about the skin. Kraus out.